People ask me, so, do you believe in God now? Are you, what do you call yourself? Are you atheist, agnostic, humanist, like some kind of label? Do you ever get that? Yeah, if you're not a Christian anymore, or whatever. And people try to put a label on me, and I've thought about that. And the label that I come up with that feels best to me is animal. And usually people go, that. Although I have a slight improvement on that, and that's Homo sapien. And I'll tell you why. It's not a small matter. This idea is huge, because if we think about ourselves in that way, and in an evolutionary context, it makes a lot of things fall into place. And it makes it so helpful to understand ourselves. And basically, a lot of what we need to do in order to function well with each other and be happy with ourselves rests on understanding ourselves better. I mean, this goes way back. Know thyself, to thine own self be true, right? So, to understand our emotions, to understand the way that we think, to understand how we relate to each other, and just to understand what is going on is so useful. So to look at things through the lens of evolutionary psychology is just so helpful. So let's say that, first of all, we realize that evolution is something to accept. Okay, we're going to forget about creationism. Is that okay to start with? So we've been here for millions of years. And now, to realize that the time that we've had on Earth where we've had this kind of civilized society has been a tiny fraction of the time that humanoids have been on Earth, right? So the brains that we have right now are basically Stone Age brains in modern skulls. And that is no small matter. So basically something like 98% or more of the evolution of our brains happened while we were evolving from as primates and then as cave people living like on the savanna of Africa and hunting and gathering and foraging and fighting predators. Okay? So much of the way that our brain operates is for that lifestyle. And those are the brains that we still have. And those are the brains that everyone is still operating with. And those basic impulses are still the most powerful impulses that we have. We have other developments, but those are the most powerful ones because those are the ones that are most deeply lodged in our old brain, which has been called the reptilian brain. But it is basically the amygdala, the oldest part of the brain in the back, where your emotions are lodged and where your emotional memories are and where your instinctual responses come from that are coming out of those feelings that are in response to those circumstances that are on the savanna. Like what? Like what comes to mind? Predators. You're out on the savannah looking for food, and the grass is rustling over there. The sun is shining. It's a nice day. It's pretty. The grass is rustling, and it's kind of shiny and nice. Do you sit there and say, "Oh, what a nice glint of sun on the grass"? Or do you think, "Oh, that could be a saber-toothed tiger"? And as you're thinking about that, which conclusion would be the most survival oriented? Would you like just appreciate the day? Or would you get the hell out of there? And how fast should you make that decision? Would jumping to conclusions be a good thing? Would fear be a good thing? In fact, would fear be the best thing for you to have as an emotion in a lot of circumstances? Abject terror, in fact, when you have any clue of threat. To move as fast as you can when you sense that there's any chance of threat. The audience can react now and go, yeah. Okay. So what we know is that fear is our basic emotion. Is anything falling into place yet? And so anything that is based on fear and any kind of fear-mongering works really well. Okay, so think more about living in this kind of circumstance. What else do we know about that kind of lifestyle? People lived in tribes. Would you do well as an individual out there? Would you have? Would it be important to be a part of a tribe and belong to a group and know, like, this is my group, and not and those are enemies, and know, like, the in group and out group, we, they, and know who you belong to, and would it be important to be accepted, and would it be dangerous to be rejected? Should you conform? Should you find out what the rules are and conform? Yes. And what about a baby? What about a baby that just kind of gets left out there to lie in the grass, and the mother's going to walk around, have a little walk, and that baby is left alone and realizes that it's alone? What would that baby do? What would be a natural instinct for that baby to do?
To cry.
Cry and scream, right? Make a lot of noise. And why? Because if the parent doesn't take care of that baby pretty much all the time, a predator is going to snap that baby up within seconds. Whether it's a bird of prey or an animal of some kind, the baby's toast. So babies are incredibly dependent. And then when they get a little bit older and they have this extremely dependent relationship on their parents just for survival, and their parents tell them what to do, like, come in the cave right now, what are they wired to do? Obey, right? Isn't obedience? How important would obedience be? Obedience would be the most important thing, right? obey authority is something that is hardwired into small children, or else they're going to die. So it's easy to convince children to obey, and it's so important to convince children to obey. And to some extent nowadays, I mean, do you need to teach children to obey? What about if your child is running out into traffic? Yeah, it's still important, right? Because we still have babies that are babies are still dependent. We still have that. And then as humans evolved, they got bigger brains, and in order to accommodate the development of that brain, babies were born earlier. So when a child is born, the brain is not fully developed. So like for the first couple of years, a baby does not survive without parental care. It's not like other mammals. A lot of other mammals can just stretch and dry off and stand up and, you know, basically walk away like a young calf, right? And they might need parental care, but they're not going to die instantly without their parents. But a human baby does. And a human baby is highly dependent for a couple of years. And it takes that long for, I mean, the brain is growing and developing because it is incredibly undeveloped at birth because it needs to be smaller to get through the birth canal. That's just the physical truth of the human body.